In my later stages of my career, I had a lot of knee problems already from the age of, I would say, 30 years old. But I was already thinking about the day after. I already had a lot of studies like business management, and I was already doing also my coaching course just to make sure that I could go both ways if necessary. And at the age of 36, I tried a last adventure in which I was a player and also assistant coach. And then I realized that my passion was still not to be coaching. So I went the path of the sport director, which I did for 7 years in a row, but always with a very good working together with all the coaches that I've had. Also very alert to see how they solve problems, how they prepare the trainings, how they prepare the matches, the motions of the players, everything, all the tactical thoughts, and very open dialogue. So I was learning a lot. And from there on, I think I learned as a sport director how important it is to have a very good staff in which loyalty is important, but also that you have people around you who don't always agree with you, but who give you different views on issues. And I love to argue, I love to discuss football. So I think I kind of grew in there. It wasn't planned like you have a lot of football players at the age of 32, 33, 34. They already know they want to be a coach. For me, it was slightly different. I just kind of grew in there, and now as a coach, I'm trying to develop myself every day, trying to learn, trying to study how others would solve a certain issue, tactical or on the pitch or off the pitch. And I feel the fact that I've had experience as a player, also as a sport director, which makes me understand how clubs can think and how it is to think on medium and long term. And of course now as a coach, in which nowadays in football it's really short term, and if you're lucky it's medium term. But I think it's been a good combination of things that are useful in my everyday job as a coach. The luck of having played in certain clubs, like for example Barcelona, Manchester United, are absolute dominators on and off the pitch. But a lot of times it wasn't a question, if we're going to win. It was a question of when we would win, because you knew that you had so much quality in the squads that and you're always playing to win titles. So normally a high percentage of the games ends up with a victory. Then I had an experience in Alavés, who was an underdog kind of team that we had to adapt ourselves to how we would stop the bigger teams, how could we hurt them. Especially that's where I understood the importance of set pieces, because when you're a team that is capable of holding a 0-0 against the big teams, sometimes a set piece can make a big difference. So I learned also a different kind of football in a team like Alavés, in which I also really enjoyed my time. And again, it was a different kind of football. It was not anymore the dominating football, but it was the how do I protect myself kind of football. And I think all these experiences have helped me. With Ferguson, and a lot of times also with my father, I think about them a lot. When there's like a man management situation, that you have some problem with, players nowadays are complete different characters, different egos. You don't treat everybody in the same way, or you don't solve the problem with every single player in the same way. You have to differentiate a lot. And that's when I know, and I think a lot back on, how Ferguson did his things, and also how my father would solve things. And especially in regards to my father, it happens a lot when I'm in a game and you're doubting between making two decisions, for example, that you have to make a substitution, and you're having that doubt. Then I catch myself a lot of times thinking on the bench, okay, what would he do at this moment? And then I take a decision and I go for it. And so they are very present, all the football clubs where I've been, but especially the coaches I've worked with, the bigger names, also the less bigger names. I think, it's come in my head, and a lot of my decisions nowadays, of course, have to do with a learning curve of the past. As a sport director, I was more in charge of advising and choosing which coach we would have, kind of a DNA of the club, how we would want to play. We knew that the coaches, if they had a good year, they would go to a bigger league, a bigger place. So we couldn't adjust ourselves as a club to what the coach wanted, because we knew if there was success, it would be short term. So we tried to create a little bit of our way of functioning, our way of going into the games, always with the thought to win, always to be a dominator on the pitch. And we used to sign players, of course, with that idea. Also, a club that can buy young players to let them grow, and especially foreigners, and try to sell them to bigger leagues. So my job was more to guard, the path and the structure that the club, together with the owner, decided to embark. And then you're kind of there trying to explain to the coach, when a coach is always thinking short term, to say, yes, coach, you're right, but we're also looking, at the next step of the club. We would like to do this because we have, for example, with players, we believe that we have a player that in 6 months or 1 year will break through in the first team from the youth. So we don't want to block him by signing another player for 4 years with a big budget. So there's a lot of ways that you work together with a coach. And I think it really helps me now as a coach, because I find myself in situations that I actually understand a lot of the decisions that clubs take, because there is a kind of a conflict of interest. We're in the same club, we're in the same team, but coaches nowadays, due to lack of patience, it's a lot of short-term ideas, and clubs, they like short-term, middle-term, but also long-term. So it's always a challenge to find the common ground in which everybody's happy with the decisions that you make in regards to, for example, players. But in that aspect, I've learned a lot from my coaches. I've learned a lot from the owners also, who have a different perspective of football, who are not specifically football specialists, but they're successful businessmen, and you can also learn from them a lot. So I just think I've rolled into the coaching. I haven't planned it. Yes, I did plan, and I've had my coaching licenses for many years before. So probably there was a thought in the back of my mind that maybe one day I would go for the coaching direction. But it was not specifically planned to say in 2 years I want to make that transition. Absolutely not. It just came as it came. So there was a moment that we were not going the way we hoped for and expected with a coach, and we decided to part ways. It was in a time there was like a lot of games, if I remember right, like 8 or 9 games in very few, like in 4, 5, 6 weeks. So together with the owner, we decided that if we had to bring in a new foreigner, it would take time to adjust. And it was around January, I think. So then we thought, if we need a coach who needs to adapt now, maybe we lose the options that we still have to win titles. So the owner asked me to take over for 8, 9 games, which I did. But my idea was always to not take over definitely, just temporarily. So that's what we did. But the team had good results. So in a way, the owner was interested in me staying along. But as a principal, I felt it wasn't correct to sit on the chair of the coach and then take over like on already in a definite way. So I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I told the owner, that's not what I stand for. I want to be a sport director. We agreed on these 8, 9 games. We did it. We had good results, and now we have a more like clean weeks, that there's no games in midweek. So then we decided to bring in a new foreign coach, that I would help him to adapt and go back to my old role, which we did. And at the end of the season, we didn't have a very good end of the season. So then we just made a decision together with the owner that let's try and let's see how it goes. And that's when I started to be the coach already in a definite way. After Maccabi, when I started to be coach, we agreed with the owner that it would be my last year Maccabi, that we made the transition from sport director to coach. And I was very honest to him. I said, if we don't have good results, then you will want to bring a new coach. And if we have good results, I will want to grow. And after 6 years at the club, we'll want to move forward. It's time for the club to have a new messenger, a new message, new ideas, refreshing ideas. So when I started that job, we already decided it would be only 1 year. And when the moment came, we already announced it. Then I was really thinking I've been many years away from home. My father had passed away, and I really wanted to stay close to my mother, to my kids, to the family. So my plan was to be basically 6 months in Barcelona to just refresh, also for myself, to talk with other coaches, other sport directors, and to just kind of talk about maybe new methods came out in football, just to be updated with new things in football. But then it was a phone call from China with a good offer, and I've always liked, different kind of challenges, mysterious challenges. So instead of staying home for 6 months, I was only there 3 weeks, and I disembarked on a new adventure in a club that started the season well. And then there was a moment which can happen. They took 5 points out of 27. They were already in a negative kind of dynamic, that the results were not going that way. And I came there without knowing anyone, without knowing a single player, having to work with translators because hardly any player understood English. With the Brazilians, I was lucky that with the Spanish, the communication is quite simple. And I went on a whole new adventure with good results, because in the end we had a good end of the season. And from there on, we haven't stopped to work. Of course, when we finished in Chongqing, a new project came up, which was Ecuador national team, which was also different. I've not been in that kind of continent before, but I was really dreaming about feeling the football. They always say that football in South America, it's special. And I was very curious to live that, to experience it, to breathe that. With the bad luck that the whole Corona situation with the virus just canceled every single football league almost. They canceled the Copa America, which was something I was really, really looking forward to. And unfortunately, that project didn't have really a start and no end. So it actually ended before I even started. What I did analyze is that Ecuador in I think already now, but in 2-3 years, is going to be one of the stronger, I think top 4, top 3 football nation of South America, because they have an amazing potential of players, of young players who are growing. And it's absolutely no surprise to me that they've started really well in the World Cup qualifiers with very good results, and they're only going to grow. And I'm convinced, because from what I could see from the players, they have the character and the potential to grow. And they will be a very strong football nation in the years to come. Then the Chinese came, obviously due to my previous experience in another club with good results. So they came, and I was, I saw that they were playing football again. I wanted to coach again. I wanted to have the emotion of having games every 3-4 days, also to have trainings every day. So yeah, then we went to China in a different football format due to the Corona, in a football bubble. But again, another experience that we can only learn from. I think as a coach, it's important to know that this is a never-ending journey, that every day is a new day, and football in general keeps on changing. There's new technologies around football that you can use, new database. There's a lot of extras coming. So I think we never stop learning, and it's important to always have the drive to keep improving, to be open-minded, to learn how others do it, how others think, how others would solve a problem. And it's like a never-ending story. There's many ways to success, and it's important to be open-minded. Also, when you go to football teams, you cannot just expect that you go with your book and this is the new plan. You have to understand that in every culture there's a different way of doing, there's a different rhythm, there's a different culture, there's just a different way. And as a coach nowadays, you need to be adaptable to every situation, and sometimes even to go off your romantic football idea, because maybe in some places it just doesn't fit. So you need to be adapting in that aspect. And for myself, as I said, I'm just planning to try to learn, to try to improve. But I also know from the way I am, I'm not such a good planner for my own future. I just take it the way it comes. I just enjoy, I work, I try to learn. And in my career, you just never know where I will be in a few years' time, and not even in what role I will be in a few years' time. So I take it as it is. I'm learning, I'm open-minded, and especially I try to enjoy every day. So the step from sport director to coach was not something planned, even though I did prepare with coaching licenses. But that's also for myself to, as a sport director, to understand the coaches and to be able to speak to them, because in the end I had the same license that they had, and then you kind of can speak about same subjects in a very good way. I've always had a very good relation with the coaches. I've always known where the boundaries is for a sport director, that you don't cross it, and that you give the coach his working space. But it's always good to talk about football, for I obviously see more than two. And again, I've always had a good relation, and I still have, with all the coaches I've worked together with. And I think as a sport director, I've always been understanding to players, because I've also been a young player. I've also made mistakes. So I think it's good to be understanding, but also to obviously protect the interest of the club, to have a very good work relation with a coach that maybe has a lineup that as a sport director you would do different, but you have to respect his decisions, and that's just the way it is. And I think in that aspect, I've always known exactly where to draw the line. It's not only what you know from on the grass, but it's also how do you deal with the dressing room. And I think nowadays clubs are really looking for managers or for coaches who kind of also know how to lead a large group of players or staff members, and to convince them and to go in the same direction, which as a sport director, there's a lot of similarities. That's also kind of a way that you create a good working environment in which everybody has his own specialization, and that we all follow the common goal, the common strategy of the club. So I think in that aspect, the sport director experience has helped me a lot as a coach, and also the coaching experience could eventually help me if I ever go back to being a sport director. It's going to be a very good learning process to only be better in the future.